Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Sean Slater.
And I'm his sister Caroline.
And this week we're starting with minute 43, which opens with Miles checking that Peter is okay, and ending a minute later with Miles exposing his goober.
I have titled this minute, Are Your Atoms Jazzed?
That is a great way to explain what happens when they glitch, and what the glitching looks like is it
jazzy. It's very jazzy.
Yeah, it feels jazzy.
I'm far too proud of that title.
Yeah, speaking of the glitching, they in the director's commentary they actually went into a bit of how that was accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they took like 7 or 8 cameras and stuck them around the model. So like these are digital cameras with a digital model.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would like record that and then pick different angles for different parts of the body and show it, like swap those in and out for like those parts and then color them slightly differently. And that was how they got that like swapping effect between the dimensions. Like him glitching between dimensions was like, oh, the camera's actually like rotating around his body and it's just cutting in different chunks of those different angles.
That sounds like so simple, but yet so ingenious at the same time.
Yeah, like it's a really simple concept. I feel like the trickiest part was probably like getting it, cutting in the different angles and like figuring out how much to show from each angle and for how long and whatnot.
I feel like it'd be either that or maybe even just the coloring process. Like, how different do we make it?
Yeah, but coloring, like I was thinking for more tech, like color is like because of the way they color this, it's like an all or nothing. So it's just like slider adjustments that they're doing for that.
Good point.
I feel like for the way it is, but like getting it to be like, oh, for this part of the body, like geometries usually can be really difficult to get.
Yeah, that's true.
Can be. This one, it's probably a lot simpler than what it is, and it's probably they're just like sliding a bunch of polygon like shapes through. But like I said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought it was really cool to like that was how they did that glitching effect.
That's so cool. Speaking of Peter going between his 2 dimensions and his atoms being jazzed.
Yeah.
Right before that, I really just wanted to talk about this line just because it kind of made me chuckle. Where Peter is like, look, I got a lot going on in my dimension.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you laugh at it at first. He's like, no, you don't. But then you think about it, I'm like, oh, it actually, he kind of does.
Yeah,
like,
it's that like
dealing with his divorce. He's still trying to be like, it's a whole thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, he actually kind of does have a lot going on in his dimension.
Yeah, it's that like it's not a lot like I'm busy a lot, but a lot like a lot on my mind a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was not something I'd really thought about. I thought it was, him being more like trying to sound cooler than he is.
Like the
Miles.
crunches and stuff.
Yeah. And it was just an extension of that. But yeah, he does have a lot going on in that dimension. Just like adding one more thing to his plate here is just another.
Yeah. Like something he does not want to deal with.
Yeah.
There is a bit of that unreliable narrator like we talked about when we were talking about Peter B's flashback.
Yeah.
So I do think that is part of it, where it's him kind of being like, no, I got a lot going on, and the unreliability is more like he's trying to brush it off as that he's busy. Like, I don't even know if he fully realizes the whole mental aspect to it.
Yeah.
I love how fed up he is with it, too. Like, you can, when he says that line, like, I got a lot going on. Like, he's trying to just, like, brush Miles off. And then Miles, bless this boy, he starts to say, with great power comes great... Don't you dare finish that sentence!
Yeah, you can really feel, like, you can feel the years weighing down on him in that, and how he feels like that, like... You can almost taste like malice behind it, and just like how almost what's the word I'm looking for? He's like almost angry at that. Like if I hadn't heard that, I could be living a happy life, but I'm stuck doing this right now.
Yeah, it almost feels like this whole idea of I don't want it to be my responsibility. Like it should be someone else's. Like why did I have to become a superhero just because I got these powers?
Yeah.
Like I don't like it's not true. Again, he reflects this whole idea of like, why did I have to be a hero just because I got these powers by even like telling Miles like, you want my advice? Go back to being a regular kid.
Yeah, and Miles makes it sound like he says I don't have a choice, and it feels like he feels like he's expected to continue on because he made the promise to the other Peter and told Peter like, yes, I'll do this for you. I'll save the city. And there is the like, if he doesn't, Brooklyn's gonna explode and we're all gonna so like, of course, like that's probably also part of his motivation is not wanting the whole city to burn. But I think I think the promise that Miles made to Peter is weighing on him more than that like end of the world scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like that's sort of what's keeping him motivated. And he just feels like he's expected to continue doing this because that's what he said he would, and like what the other Peter like expected him to do.
I think it's a little more, less than that. Miles specifically says, I don't have a choice, which I just want to point out, theme of choice again being brought up in this movie. I think it's not always so much with Peter, like, oh, I made a promise to Peter. I think it's also the fact, like, I can't go back to being a regular kid because he brings up the fact Kingpin is after him. Like, Kingpin knows he's not, obviously not specifically Miles, but like he knows someone is out there who saw what happened in reality. Like, Prowler's gonna be after Miles. He's Miles won't be able to really go back to being a regular kid because he's always going to have that looking over his shoulder like, is today the day that they're going to catch me?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that part up too because it does feel very important. It's like, how can I go back to being a regular kid when I'm getting hunted by the biggest crime boss in the city?
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about a bit earlier with Peter, like trying to be cooler than he is a bit, and just dealing with his stuff. Um, I really liked how the way they have this walk and talk where he just is walking up the building so nonchalantly and like
Mm-hmm.
relaxed. Like you can tell he's experienced here. Like he is an experienced um, Spider-Man of just like, oh, I've done this before, and he does the like cool little flip onto the car, and it's really like they show Miles really struggling to walk down the wall, um, and like he's still kind of sitting on the wall with his frame of reference as like the ground is down, and hasn't really adjusted his sense of space to be more like anything can be the ground,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Peter can just easily switch from like, okay, this wall is now the ground, I'm walking on it like I normally would walk on the ground.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up. Like, it's a really clever juxtaposition of having Peter who so seamlessly transitions from wall to car back to wall.
Yeah, back to the other
and
wall.
and Miles is even just struggling just to stick onto anything.
Yeah, I love the way they show Miles like sliding down the wall, and like he grabs one fire escape landing and then like grabs the next one and slowly slides down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um,
Um.
and I like how they do the shot of the wall being
That looks like the floor. I was gonna bring that up. I love that shot.
it reminds me of the old Batman cartoons.
That's exactly
or not cartoons.
what I thought. The old Adam West show. Like, this is
Batman
how
66.
they would walk up the walls, as that they just had it as the floor.
And it looks, kind of similar to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is very Adam West. I do want to talk very quickly, just a little bit about, like, what they're talking about while he's walking up the wall. So, like, while he's walking away from Miles, and Miles is just kind of, like, we were talking earlier, is, like, coming up with all these reasons with, like, why he doesn't have a choice of going back to a regular kid. One of them is, like, he has a, like, Kingpin has a collider. He's trying to kill me. And Peter's like, wait, repeat that again? He's like, Kingpin's trying to kill me. He's like, no, the collider part. Like, Peter B. Parker is a real jerk. Like, you just totally brushed off a kid's, like,
concern about dying. And I think, like, it's kind of that, like, you forget what it's like to be a newbie at times after doing it forever. Because
what it is.
He also, like, mentions, like, Miles also says, like, everyone's going to die. Because Peter's like, oh, we have to let him turn it back on. He's like, we can't do that. Everyone's going to die. And Peter's like, that's what they always say. And, like, it's like, okay, whatever.
Like, there's always that very specific split second where not everyone dies. And that's when I do my best work. And it's like, what? But
I think, like, it is a very, like, true statement, is, like, and this is, that feels like a, also a commentary on just, like, a lot of movies now, especially, like, a lot of superhero movies, where it's like, yeah, okay, they always say, oh, everyone's gonna die, like, will the heroes do it? And the heroes always do it. Like,
you're right.
There's, and that's like part of the issues I have with a lot of superhero movies these days. Like the bigger ones, the higher stakes ones, is that they're not actually higher stakes because, like, the villain isn't gonna win.
Yeah, like, there was only one time. There was only one time it worked.
Infinity War was the biggest fender of them all, because we knew it was part 1 of 2. So obviously everyone knows in part 1, like, at the, during the rising action, that's when the villain seems to have won, and the heroes sink their lowest, but no, they always come back and save the day in the end. And it's just this, like there's not any, like, real major stakes in it, and I just can't get behind the story, because it's like,
so many people
it becomes
like,
so
they died, and it's like, they're gonna find a way to come back. Like, come on here.
Yeah, it's just like, they're gonna win in the end, and it's not really that big of a deal. It's just, I don't care, and they can't make me care.
It does. I will agree with you.
I don't think
it does take a lot for me to get really invested in.
Yeah, I think that's better. Instead, it's not that I don't care; it's that I'm not invested in it.
I will say, Spider-Verse is one of the few movies, especially in superhero movies, where it's like, there were times I really questioned, like, wait, is Miles going to get through this?
I think the difference between this movie and, like, other ones is that, and this could be me just talking hypocritically because I liked this movie a lot, but they don't focus on, like, stopping the collider isn't it's just the MacGuffin at the end of the movie, and, like, it's more of the
it's almost a B plot.
Yeah. And,
like, the real major conflict and story is Miles becoming Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And, like, I will say, in that sense, I think I wasn't completely in it, just because, like, obviously, I know Miles is going to become Spider-Man. Like, clearly he is. I think it was more invested of, like, when is he going to do it, and how are they going to get him to do it? It was where I was really interested.
Yeah.
And I will say, they didn't pull many punches here. Like we talked in an earlier minute, and I'm sure we'll talk again in a later minute, but, like, they really do pull some very heavy, like, they don't pull any punches when it comes, especially to the emotional things for Miles. And I think that's what makes his story so compelling.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to add on to that. It's just fine.
Well, thank you.
The last thing I wanted to bring up in this minute is just the when Miles reveals the goober. And I love how just like proud he is. He's like, "Oh, well, aren't you gonna need this?" And then Peter gives it
it's like, "Oh, a goober."
Yeah.
Very casual.
And it's a good name for it. I
It
like it makes sense. It's a nice little silly
It brings up
nonsensical
nostalgia,
word.
because that's what I used to call you.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad also called both of us that.
Yeah.
But that is all I have for this minute. Do you want to add any last minute thoughts at all?
No, there's nothing else I have on this minute.
Okay, well, thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will catch you on Wednesday with Minute 44. See you next time.
Bye.